One of the biggest red flags to me as far as man-made climate change, quote unquote, is concerned is the fact that the people that are pushing the narrative of man-made climate change are the same ones who have spent the best part of 5 years trying to erode nation states, the same people that have been pushing postmodernism, Marxism, cancerous fourth wave feminism, the gender bender BS, etc, etc, the LGBT, I could go on. And then we're expected to believe that all of that is low-hanging fruit, but they're right when it comes to climate change. The feminists talk about the patriarchy and capitalism. The LGBT talk about ancient discrimination to non-existent non-binaries and capitalism. They all do the same thing, the same routine of how oppressed they are by the evil white man. And of course, their solution is communism. And then we have climate change. But this is totally different because David Attenborough said so. Oh, it's totally different. I don't know. This time, it's nothing to do with all the other whack job shit that they're peddling on a daily basis. Let's not forget, you can give credit where credit's due to the politicians that know what they're doing. At least they've got a cop out, they're just lying. But there have to be some absolutely insane people in and around the midst of these people pushing this narrative, or these narratives, I should say. This is, for example, campaigning is back, confidence is on the up among activists, right? It says here that the confidence is rising amongst campaigners after years of feeling repressed. Scotland has been a progressive shithole for the best part of 5 years, and you still claim that you're feeling repressed, and only now things are starting to change. A study suggests that the public is more supportive and appreciative of those who push for progressive change. All we've seen is progressive change, and look where the fuck it's taking us. Toolkit helps children act as human rights defenders, and just listen to these people justify themselves. It's just not normal what they're doing. Surely people should take a step back and say to themselves, before you even dig into the science and the conversation in relation to climate change and how severe it actually is and how much it is to do with man or how little, look at what they're doing. Their actions are bizarre. It's beyond me at this point. And yet these people still have the gall to pretend that what they're doing is desperately required and they're going to save the world. Big sustainable bill, and the UN globalists are going to save the world, are they?
So Clanchild Law our tagline is Lawyers for Children and Young People, which is basically what it says on the tin.
I'm Fiona, this is Alison, for those of you who don't know us. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many people here, friends old and new, so fantastic. And a special welcome to members of the Children's Parliament. We're really super excited that you guys are here today.
And the reason we're here today is because we wanted to have a conference to mark our 10-year anniversary. So I'm really pleased to hear from Bruce Adamson, who's the Children and Young People's Commissioner Scotland.
It's great to be amongst friends, old and new, and special welcome to members of the Children's Parliament. And I love the fact that on the list of all the people that are here today, you're described as human rights defenders, because that's what you are. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you later today about the exciting work that you have been doing and will be.
Why? Why have you given the label to children to classify them as human rights defenders? Well, we know why, because now it's enshrined in law that their human rights have to be respected. So when they demand action on climate change, the government get to pretend they twisted their arm. The point is, though, you're standing there talking about how wonderful and marvellous it is for them to be human rights defenders. They're children. What is this?
Be doing in the future.
We've made promises to children and young people to protect the special nature of childhood. We've made promises that every child in Scotland and in the world should grow up in an environment of happiness and love and understanding.
You have to question whether or not this guy really believes the shit he's saying, or if he's just paid to say it. I'm not entirely sure which one's worse, but at least it's bizarre. At worst, it's nefarious, insidious even. So anyway, moving on, and I think this one's a doozy, if ever I saw one. There needs to be more representative democracy in Scotland. How the Citizens' Assembly offers a new model for politics. Walking into the Citizens' Assembly, as the room begins to settle down for the first presentation, the most striking thing is how different the faces look compared to those that form the backdrop to Scotland's most powerful institutions. There are lots of young people's faces, for a start, and lots of older ones too. Gone is the dominance of middle-aged seen in councils and parliaments across Scotland, and there isn't grey suit in sight or whatever. half the room, meanwhile, is female. That's great. That's progressive. It's diverse, right? Yada yada yada. Then it comes down here. I love this bit. So he says, but that we have to trust that the people who came up with it will take forward our priorities. So he's talking about the Citizen Assembly, obviously. And he goes on to talk about how they're independent, or he implies it. The 115 people present have been chosen, not because they have specialist political knowledge or because they feel particularly strongly about any one issue, but as part of an attempt to represent society more widely. This is a mini Scotland, in effect, broadly representative of the adult population. Right? Then if you come down, though, it says, just a few paragraphs later, it's just ridiculous. The audience sits scribbling on notepads between presentations, trying to keep up with the sheer amount of information being fired at them. The Assembly appears to be following objections close to the UN Sustainable Goals. That's my fucking shock. So there is nothing independent about this at all. This is a circle jerk to continue implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, who, might I add, have incorporated climate change as one. Speaking of climate change is going to bring the worst human rights violations of all time. Ooh. Since stepping down as the UN's Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights, Andrew Gilmore has planted over 200 trees. Ooh. Fucking spot on. There has to be something like the UN. I feel it's really obvious that today's problems clearly require a global solution. Oh, how convenient that word gets slotted in there. They just can't fucking help themselves. Like this one, for example. This is a different article, but it's Brewdog slams Tory plans due to causing unsustainable workforce. I mean, when he's plucking these words out of the UN's glossary, I mean, just pull the other one. Fucking unsustainable workforce. Who used the word unsustainable or sustainable prior to the sustainable development's been implemented? Come on now. Or has spoken for years. He's spoken for years about a global backlash against human rights. He sees the past decade as being a low point across the world, including Europe and America. At the root of this backlash, he says, is economic crisis or crises, austerity, disastrous policies of Cameron in this country. Mike Gilmore says, pointing to similar measures in Germany and other countries. So that's so. Nothing to do with the mass influx of migration and refugees that the United Nations orchestrated in order to exploit and create the migrant compact on the other side of. No, of course, it's austerity to blame for all our problems. And I hate that argument in itself. These people that acknowledge that there's problems in the country blame this, not migration, yada yada. If you acknowledge there's problems in the country, why are you still sitting there drooling at the mouth, trying to get the borders open for more to come in? Oh, they're doctors and engineers, are they? They're all doctors and engineers, or in the case of the people in Greece, or trying to get into Greece, they're all poor, innocent little refugees, are they? Oh, yeah. Really looks like they're struggling. Nah, it looks more like they're playing up for the cameras, trying to get the best shot. You know what I mean? This is just such BS. You know what I mean? David Attenborough says that there's going to be a massive influx of migration coming because of non-existent man-made climate change. The UN are always telling us off for not opening our borders to these pricks. You know what I mean? It's just a joke. There's constant moral high ground that they stand upon. It's just ridiculous that people buy into this narrative. You know, it's one thing to be on their side but know that you're a liar. But if you're one of these people that have gone to university or something and you genuinely believe this guff, you believe this shite, you can't even a tad of self-awareness to question, maybe I'm radicalised. Not everyone else is at fault. The Nazis are on the rise, apparently. Come on, the fuck. It's just immigrants or people of colour or some other minority who are somehow blamed. Oh, God, yes. Oh, people of colour. America's ruthless persecution of Central American asylum seekers and Europe's response to Syrian refugees who turned out to be Middle Eastern refugees and then, of course, Africans for the best part of 4 to 5 years. You know, it started off with Syrians, it swiftly became something completely different. But, as I've covered before, and it's pretty common, it's common knowledge if you choose to look, they sit there and they peddle crap about refugees coming from Syria and whatnot, that crisis as they call it, was nothing of the kind. They were talking about something needing to occur in order for them to justify pushing their migrant compact at the end of it. So, lo and behold, we had the refugee crisis. Serious things about Gilmore is how he was able to hold such strong critical views of the Brexit process and indeed the Johnson government while maintaining his 40-year friendship with the now Prime Minister. Gilmore recalls from their college days how he and Boris Johnson would argue over Israel and Palestine. The disagreements continue, with Gilmore describing one of Johnson's government's first acts, the one of stripping out of the Dubs Amendment form from the Brexit bill. It's one of the most despicable things I've seen. There's no reason to target the desperate children and refugees. Stop applying labels to these children when you don't know where they came from. You know that these children are desperate. How do you know that these children are refugees? For all you know, it's Abdul and Sally and they came from Saudi Arabia or Iran. But they've told you that they've come from Syria. Or maybe they didn't tell you, you just assumed. There's a lot of assumptions at play here for your fucking human rights. What they were thinking. To be honest, I don't know what they were thinking either, but there seems to be no explanation, so can't really comment. Anyway, so what does that say about Johnson? Does he really care about human rights? Can his government be counted on to prioritise it? Why do governments need to continue? Why do governments all of a sudden need to prioritise human rights? So many questions, Andrew Gilmore. Not really getting a straight answer out of you though, Paul. No government can be accounted on, Gilmore says. Boris Johnson, I think, understands some of the key points. And I know from issues that we've discussed that he has, for example, a deep sympathy for the plight of Yemenis who are the victims of our Gulf allies. So he certainly is not devoid of compassion, but I doubt any member of the government has a true understanding of human rights, he concluded. What about our human rights, Andrew, you dickhead? The Rainbow Unicorn government's words and policies on human rights, though, they've impressed Gilmore. Oh, I can tell. Look at this photo. Oh God. Unicorn government's words and policies on human rights, though, they've impressed Gilmore. UN's headquarters in New York headquarters, an enthusiastic Gilmore chaired a discussion on human rights with Nicola Thinlips. Sturgeon discussed topics such as the Rainbow Unicorn government's aspiration to embed the UN's Convention on the Rights of the Child into domestic law. Before broaching on an obvious question with the international Rainbow Unicorn delegates, nationalism everywhere is a deeply unprogressive and liberal force, particularly in today's world, Gilmore says. Being there gave her the opportunity, and she took the opportunity very nicely to explain how Scottish nationalism isn't like the nationalism that we see everywhere else in Europe, Gilmore says, because Nicola Thinlips and the Socialists have infiltrated our formerly nationalist party, exploiting Scottish patriotism, telling the Scottish people what they want to hear, while they implement all the same cancerous fucking policies that are responsible for generating the so-called far right across Europe. A pattern emerges, Andrew Gilmore, no? Anyway, basically tried to explain that this nationalism just means we want to run our own affairs. Yes. Although not a supporter of the SNP, Gilmore says there are at least 3 things Thinlips said on human rights that he finds impressive. She wrote a letter to EU nationals saying, "Don't worry, you're welcome," and I was moved by that. Oh, do you not remember what she said to them in 2014, no? If we couldn't get back in the EU, they could lose their right to stay here. Talk about fear porn, Andrew, no? He also admitted her offer to explore ways to pay for women from Northern Ireland to get access to abortions in Scotland. No fucking comments. Apology for LGBT and the T people for centuries of Scottish homophobia too moved him. Oh yeah. Talk about 100 years too late. But on that, this is the same conference where she refused to define women. Everybody gives Joe Swinson a hard time for refusing to define women. Well, Nicola Sturgeon did the same thing. Anyway, then he says something I find very appealing about where she's taking this. But he does think that Rainbow Unicorn Land needs independence to be a leader on human rights. You hear that, folks? We could be a leader in human rights if we just fought for independence. In the future, the biggest challenge facing human rights across the globe is impending climate catastrophe. Oh, shut the fuck up. Into the obliteration of human rights. Oh, what are we going to do, Andrew? Tell me. I think that it's not well enough understood that climate change is going to bring the worst human rights violations of all time, he says darkly. Comparable to the worst wars in terms of mass movement of people. See, here we go. Illustrated the refugee crisis. They allowed the problems to worsen in the Mediterranean, and then when the deaths and whatnot occurred, over time, as the problems intensified, they then pressured or tried to put pressure on the EU countries to all take in their fair share, and when that failed, they rolled out the Migrant Compact. And after that was signed quietly, one of the first things they did was update the definitions, and the definition now includes people fleeing climate change. It's bizarre. Because it was 10 years ago, it was global warming. Now it's climate change. People really do have short memories. He's confident that climate change deniers will soon be voted out of office, although he concedes it might not happen straight away. Climate change deniers. This moral high ground you're on, Andrew, doesn't suit you, you fucking bellend. Nobody's disputing that climate change isn't a thing. What they're disputing is the fact that you're all lying about what it is. You have fabricated data. You lie for a fucking living. Your solutions are very convenient. Above all else, it went from global warming to climate change. Funny that. Why did that happen? Because when certain parts of the world were getting colder than average, that didn't suit the narrative, Andrew, did it? I'm hopeful that the young generation will pick up the human rights issues with as much energy and enthusiasm as they have done with the environmental ones. That does give me hope, yes, going back to their human rights defenders toolkits and whatnot. It's been taught that climate change is a man-made problem in primary 1, are protesting by primary 2, by emergency declared by primary 3. I love it when a plan comes together, Andrew, eh boy? New Scots meeting the Syrian refugees who are setting up businesses in a small Scottish town. To be committed to resettling 20,000 Syrian refugees in the UK, while Nicola Finlip said that Rainbow Unicorn Land would take a minimum of 10% of the UK total. And then when she got her first 3,000, she quietly imported another 3,000. Kept that one under lock and key to SC. I wonder why that was. And I'm still convinced you're flying them in at the dead of night. However, Unicorn Government recently published plans for a Scottish replacement migration visa, which highlights Scotland's needs for migration to help maintain the tax base to fund public services, as the population ages. But it shows what can be achieved when the right coordinated package of support is put in place for refugee families. People bring a huge range of skills and experiences with them when they seek refugee protection here, and it's great to see this being used to enrich neighbourhoods and communities across Scotland. Fucking these words, man. One wants to make a dignified income and be able to independently, sustain themselves and their families, but the support needs to be put in place for this. The whole society must invest as early as possible in people's potential. Oh, of course! And the more we invest, the more likely you're going to come over here and try arm a refugee claim. It's funny how that works. Why is it incumbent on us to do anything for you? You're over here because you're supposedly fighting a war. You should be grateful for the fuck you get. Fuck me. We have strong political leadership around migration issues in Scotland. Yeah, that's because all the parties are lefties. Harness both of these if we are able to provide the support people seeking refuge protection are entitled to. Well, they're entitled to this now. And to think independently about the future prosperity of the country. Our country, not yours, bear that in mind, yes? It's an encouraging idea that at a time when Scotland needs migrants for their energy, skills and innovation, it's a reminder that refugees are very much part of that story. Story being the operative word, because this is all shit. This is absolute shit. Where is the government's funding to promote families here in Scotland? Why are you importing people from all over the world to come here to have children on our behalf? Why are you constantly reminding us all that we're a progressive namby-pamby nation? Why are you constantly reminding us on a regular basis that we need to prioritise human rights? Why are you constantly peddling narratives that suggest that only migrants can come in here and innovate and bring their energy and skills and so on and so forth for Scottish people in it? What's going on here? For this wanker in this cringy photo, fuck knows what they were thinking when they posed for this one. Talking about human rights. What about the native European people's human rights? What about the Scottish natives' human rights? You don't have any human rights because you've redefined native and indigenous. The deliberate aim of excluding us from any guaranteed protections in the coming years